Kathy here from KathysKuteKreations with week 4. This is my third try at this video, y'all. So, for the most part, this is the paperwork you should have downloaded. This is a different type of tree, and I believe we're making 4 of them. Just one sheet of paper, so shouldn't take too long. Let's get started. The fabrics that we're going to be using, I've got them laid out. First thing we're going to do is we're going to create the sides of the tree. Now, if you're going to chain stitch these, by all means, go ahead and line them up so you can chain stitch them. Take your A, which is the 4. Oops, wait a minute, my dog just got hung up. Oh my gosh, that little booger. He got hung up in the ironing cord. Okay. At least he had sense to just stop there and let me help him, and didn't try to run off, which would have knocked the ironing board on the floor. Oh lordy. Okay, so he just did a little thing this morning where he actually grabbed something that fell. And now this is what Josie, if y'all have watched my videos long enough, you know that Josie was my Doberman. She was the first dog that I got when I moved here. She used to pick things up that she knew didn't belong to her, and she didn't have a problem with it. And so she literally drug it around in front of me until I saw what she had, and then I just took it, and he took it right over here and just dropped it on the floor. So I picked that up real quick and came back. So we're going to take the D, which is the darkest green color, and they are 4.5 by 7.5 inch triangles, and we're going to put it, if you look on the table here, I have it long ways. I have marked all of my squares, which you know are 4.5 by 4.5, based on the fact that this is a 4.5 inch width on this. I went ahead and I marked them all, although I'm going to use 2 here. Now, when I put it on, I'm going to sew from the edge of the long side of the fabric, the length, not the width, which is the shorter part, because if you have a sewing machine and it's not fancy, and it's not, there's no reason for it to be fancy, and it only does a straight stitch, the plate down here will have a little circle, which is fine. But in this case, I don't use the little one. I use it because I use stitches, I do zigzag and things like that. So I go ahead and I usually use this one for always. Every now and then I've changed out my plate. But if that was the case and you started on the end down here, it could jam and go underneath that, which would make a mess on your sewing machine. So I always start from the edge over here. And I have tried to make it a habit that I start my stitch, because I've noticed that more stitches come apart when I'm trying to sew. So I try to knock my stitch length down just a little bit so that it catches. There we go. And then after I've started, I go ahead and I put it back up, and I'm actually doing the 2 inch length when I do this. I pinned this in so that it wouldn't, or this edge here, so that it wouldn't move. As long as you're not going over the head of your needle, because I know some people put their pins in differently, and that's fine. Make sure my hands are not in the way and come right off that edge. And since I'm going to only do 1 to begin with, because I want to do 1 block, and then I will go ahead and do the other 3, I'm going to cut this thread. The little ruler that I normally use is this one, but it's not long enough, because you always want to make sure that your ruler comes off each end. And this is the 1/4 inch right here, already measured for me. So I put the black dotted line across my stitching. Make sure it's off on both ends, so it's off the fabric before I trim it. It would be good if I opened my blade. There we go, like that. And just to let you know, going forward, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do another. First, I'm going to finger press this. I'm going to go ahead and do another stitch on this to make another half square triangle, which you guys already know that I do that. So that's going to take me a little bit extra time than it would you if you were doing the same project. I went ahead and I drew the other line on this one. I had not done that the first time around, but I did it this time around. And in case you're wondering what I knock my stitch down below the 2 that I'm doing, it's anywhere between, let me go a couple times. I got it at 1.6 right now. And I could go down as much as 1.4, but I try not to. I'll line this one up here. go ahead and I'll stitch this on, actually this line is too small, so I'm going to go ahead and redo it. After I had cut that first one, that's when I realized I had done it wrong first time around, so I went back. And keep in mind, when you stop at the smaller stitch, then you automatically start at the smaller stitch. So I didn't have to readjust it. So on Thursday, I hope to go ahead and put my mini quilt up. Take the line that I made and go on it. Like that. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to iron this open, and then that is for the first one. I'm going to put one on each corner, so make sure your right sides are together. Mine are. I went ahead and I've pinned them both on each end. Always do 1/4 inch unless you feel more comfortable doing it bigger, and if you do, remember that your quilt will be smaller unless you have allowed for the size change, meaning that you actually cut your fabric bigger to make up for the 1/4 inch you're not cutting it. And so right now, while I do my sewing, I am watching a program on Roku, because that's regular TV here for me, and it's called Private Eye FBI, and the I is EYE. Not a new program, but it is a new program to me. I think there's only like 3 seasons to it. But the young lady who was hired is actually deaf. She signs and she speaks, and they first hired her, which she did not know it until, of course, she got to work. Moved to the state, and then got the job, went in for the job, that she was actually doing fingerprints. And she thought, oh my gosh, that's not going to wash too well with my mother. I can't do that. So she ended up getting in. She accidentally went to the wrong floor. So now we're doing the same thing with the lighter, longer piece of fabric. But anyway, she went to the wrong floor, thinking she was on the correct floor, and the guy that helped her out told her where she should be going. But at the very beginning, when it opens up, it makes you believe that she's talking about, well, it sounded like to me like she was talking about a child. I thought she was adopting a child, but she was actually adopting or not actually adopting, but picking up her hearing dog. And it's a beautiful golden retriever named Levi. And the lady that was trying to convince her not to take him was saying how he was rambunctious, irresponsible. Well, I sewed that wrong, so instead of taking it apart, I made the mark on the other side, because I know that the color will come off, because I'm using the friction pin, so it'll just come off with the iron. Anyway, so she was trying to convince her not to take him, and she said, nope, I want him. And so when he came out, she said she wasn't sure he had learned anything. Beautiful dog. When I cut off that half square triangle that I'm going to use my second one, I don't ever cut the little dog ears off, which are the edges, and then I know it hasn't been trimmed down to size. This way, for example, these little squares will actually, I didn't turn that down a little bit here. Let's back it up a little bit so I have smaller stitches. There we go. So anyway, what I was saying is, if I don't cut off the dog ears when I iron them open, like right now while I'm doing this project, then I know they haven't been trimmed down. So they're not trimmed down any specific size. This way I can trim it either 2.5 if I need it, or 3 at the most. Well, heck, I did it again. So let me go back up. I do not want to backstitch on this end right here because it won't tolerate it. I'm going to go about right there. And this fabric is heavy on the end now that it's dragging actually off of this table, where the last piece didn't do that. I'm going to go down. don't have to do the lengthening and shortening of the stitch if you don't want to. That's just me wanting to do that. There we go. Alrighty, now we are wrapping up the second strip. And there's only 3 in here. So the last one's going to have the stem on it. I've had so much fun making all these blocks for this thing. I can't even believe we're almost finished. Unbelievable. I want to go ahead and iron this open also. I'm going to have them all open so that I can figure out where I've got to nestle if I have to nestle. I don't think I have to nestle anywhere on this. I don't know about any of you, but for some reason I have broken more bobbins this year than I ever have. And for all of those wondering how my iron is doing, my new iron that I got for my birthday, it is working out fantastic. I set it up on end because right now it is way too hot to be sewing. I mean, to be ironing. If I leave it sitting down, it gets too hot. At least in my mind, it gets too hot. Let's put it that way. And I don't chance it, and I don't want anything scorched, and I don't want anything catching on fire up here either. But that's not a problem. I'm used to doing that anyway. I haven't even tried out my little one yet. I haven't even tried out the little one. I bought it also. I don't think I showed it online. But I bought it. It has a little stand. I got it off Etsy shop. One of the ladies was selling it. It is all lined up. We're just going to put it together. Alrighty, so no nestling, but don't forget you're going to be marking your tips. And they're going to be on this flying geese here. So I've got it facing upward so I can see my marks. Make sure that, there we go. I don't want that thing to flip down on me. Oops, my directions are blowing all over. Oh, gotta catch them. That happened the last time. I'm afraid that little poopy dog down there might get him and rip him up. I don't want my directions ripped up. Although he is doing pretty good in the sewing room. He's getting used to it. He does go downstairs occasionally and get himself some toys and brings them up, but that's okay. I don't mind. Normally I would have put my smaller fabric on the top, but my tips needed to be marked on this, one on each end, so I didn't want to do that. So I've just flipped it over, which is fine. You can do it either way. I don't think it's not like one's bigger than another, so this will work. Just going to take my time coming up here. My machine does not like the foot here to go over the needle. It's like too much. It doesn't want to adjust with it, although it does have an automatic adjustment, so I don't know what the problem is. As I stick myself with a pen. Oh, so I mentioned earlier how I have busted more bobbins. I went to rewind one yesterday when I was working on my project, and sure enough, after it got totally full and was loaded, that's when it busted. So I don't know if the bobbins, and I got a lot of them in the same lot, so I'm wondering if they had issues in that lot and that's the problem, or if I just happen to have had a lot of bad bobbins, or maybe they went bad. I mean, they are plastic, they're not metal, so Maybe that's the problem. I don't know. But I'm down to like 3 for my white and 3 for my black, because I keep some for black already made and white already made up. There it is finished. Let's go ahead and do the other 3. They're all done, all 4 of them. I hope you enjoyed this video. I think these turned out really great. I like the way they do. Got longer stems on these. So next week is going to be our final week for the assembly of Fir The Most part. So I hope you, like I say, I hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up if you did. You can make a comment, and I'll see you next week for the final week 5. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.